It was so cool looking when I started out this morning, nice and foggy, but by the time I worked my slow bike, slow going today, onto the top of the trail, it had lifted. But I'm out today on this, the Dolomite ALX. You know, this was a new bike for this year. Has an aluminum frame and a sized frame. These come in two sizes, medium and large. This one a medium, 17 inches, perfect for me. This, not my first go on the trail with this, because I had a lot of people wanting to know, can you ride this on the trail? Well, first off, these fat tire bikes, not made to be on trails. These fat tires, 26 by 4.0, in this case, big fatty 26s, they're designed for sand and mud. So if you're slashing around like I am right now, collecting mud, that didn't stop people from asking how this would do on the trail. Well, I pretty much knew the answer, but I took it out on the trail in its factory form, and it was rough. If you watch this channel, you'll know that I have had shoulder problems, so I'm very sensitive to anything that rattles up into my shoulder. And with the factory rigid fork, very, very tough, very bouncy. I mean, doable, but not fun doable. So I made some changes, and I'm going to cover those in this video. But first, what I kept the factory bars, I kept the factory stem, a couple of the factory spacers, or at least one of them, obviously the frame, the Mongoose abbreviated saddle, which, you know, these are nice looking and they work well. I kept the factory seat post clamp, the wheels in their entirety, meaning both the tires and the rims. I kept this drivetrain fully intact as well. You know, for this ALX, it went to a 2x8, which is a big improvement over the old 1x7. Very, very hard to get these going. 2x8 makes it quite tolerable even on a trail. And it turns out this Microshift 26C does a pretty good job. Microshift for the win so far. Okay, so what have I changed? Starting with grips. The old slip-ons I just cut off. I didn't even bother taking time to get them off. And I'll put on these. These are marquee, but a new design marquee. They've got this little, I don't know how we can see it there, but kind of a little flute out. They are lock-ons, and I kept the factory end caps. I didn't even use the end caps that came with these grips, but they are a lot better than the factory grips, even though the factory weren't that bad. But I think they look good. That gray, this angle looks a little better. It's a little off from the frame color, but I don't think it looks bad. Brakes. I went with hydraulic brakes. As you can see, these are Zoom, but they weren't purchased as Zoom. This is another case where I purchased a brand, Acton or something. I'll put the name on the screen. It was one of those off name brands that you can't even pronounce. When I got them in, I was surprised to see they were Zoom. And these Zoom hydraulics, pretty nice. And this set, it even came, I've got the factory rotor still on here because this is a 180 millimeter rotor. This brake set came with its own rotor, and it was a two-piece, looked really cool. I considered it, but I decided I would stick with the 180 just to see how much the difference was between the factory brakes and these new hydraulics. Here's another look at them, and you can see they have, I don't know how you can read this, but they say do not loose it on the brakes. So, you know, got that good quality translation. But this red works well with some of the other components, like this fork, an air fork. This particular one, baloney. You know, the baloney that we jokingly call baloney has a speed lockout just like that ZTZ. You know, just did a video about that. I'll put a link to it, talking about some of these forks, but I went with this right after my ZTZ fork fail. And you know, these are very, very similar, but this one, it fits fat tires. And options very limited when you're shopping for budget forks in general. Shopping for budget fat tire forks, super, super limited unless you want to spend $400 or $500. So I went with this, the Bolani, however you want to say it, 32. And look at that, just like that ZTZ, Bolani Factory. Remember it said ZTZ Factory and then ZTZ Racing up top, but up here, just Bolani. The ZTZ also said original design. This one, original design by Bolani and then Discovery for some reason. Guess you're going to be doing a lot of discovering with this since you can take it off-road a little easier. And I'm having a little trouble with my GoPro, but I'll see if I can edit in some footage here. Maybe you can see this fork at work. See it slightly making things smoother, but it does have 100 millimeters of travel. Unlike the ZTZ, this one's actually holding its air. Set it at 100 PSI a couple of days ago. It's still at 100 PSI, even after making it up the trail and off on a couple little offshoot rides just to see how it did. So far, so good, which is good because, like I said, very limited options budget fork for fat tire bike wise. One major downside though, there is no rebound adjustment. I don't think that would really matter because These big fat wheels can be kind of bouncy anyway, even when you let some of the air out of them, but like I said, it's doing so far. Saw the red on the rotors, and I didn't actually plan this, it just sort of happened, but the red on the fork, there's some more red on the brakes, and I actually found this red spacer laying in the floor in my basement. Thought that would work. I mean, look at that. Perfect color match. Another modification I made, the drivetrain, I didn't change anything about it but one thing. The factory pedals, very slippery. These I chose just to see if they actually worked. I've had these for a while. This is part of the kit that Blackburn sent for me to try out some of their new Walmart product line. And these, they are still plastic. They don't even have any bushings in them, I don't believe. But they do have raised tabs, and I was hoping that that would make a difference, and so far it does. Now, clearly they're not race-faced Chesters or Fukers, but much better than the factory pedals and just a few dollars. So guess if you're trying to go on the cheap for at least a little while, these would probably work. But an improvement, though, I will be changing these out to Chesters or something else if I ride this bike much more. And actually, I'm gonna ride this bike more. The next time you'll probably see it will be in the winter when we hopefully get some snow. And that's where it should do really, really well. Because you know, I had a lot of fun on the Mongoose Malice last year when we had our big snow. So I'm really looking forward to getting this out, especially with that new suspension fork. I mean, just look at that. Look at that angle. That fork makes it look beefier up front. It did create a downside though. There is more weight. The original fork, very light, very easy. This bike, I think it was 36.6 pounds out of the box. Now it's 38.6, so it gained almost 2 pounds. And that makes sense because even though this is an air fork, and there's a lot more going on here. So it's extra weight, and of course I did add this that added on just a bit of weight, but didn't actually weigh it. That weight that I just mentioned, not including this another Blackburn product that I thought I would try out. It barely clears. I mean, look at this. Though I am very curious about the design of this and kind of what they were thinking. First off, it does work. If I haven't mentioned that already, and it'll be perfect for these bigger tires, the bigger volume. But I'm curious about this. I mean, look at that. First off, the way this mounts there. The pump slides into it, and it has this Velcro strap that holds it. But there's this hose, and in the pictures, I'll see if I can show you a picture of how they had it mounted, and this hose is just going straight down, but it flops and it moves over. I could just see potential disaster. Speaking of potential disaster, I don't think this is a good idea. That's your beach ball air up and your basketball air needle. Do you really want that? And I've already had this. That has fallen out 2 times. I'm surprised it made it all the way up here onto the back of the trail. But do you really want a basketball needle close to your back tire so it could bounce out on the trail? And this little clip, I don't know, let me see. I think this is made, yeah, I don't see that can be snapped off. Maybe it can, but it looks like that's kind of permanently molded onto there. I don't know, we'll see, but yeah, good pump, but as far as application, I don't know about that. Anything other than this, but in this case, I guess it does work, so I guess a win there, but on any other bike, I don't know that it would. So what do you think about my mods to this Dolomite ALX? An awesome bike already. I think this makes it a little better, even though it's a little heavier. Cost of all this stuff, I'll put the price on the screen that I paid for it, but remember, prices are dynamic. I'll also put a link down in the description to all this stuff so you can take a look at it. Maybe in today's prices. A couple of these items from Walmart, the pedals and the pump. The rest, I believe Amazon or eBay. I'll have the links in the description so you can look. But comment below with what you think about this. Next time you see it, hopefully it'll be in snow. Future mods, probably fenders, especially with snow riding in mind, and maybe I'll hit some of this mud down here. At the very least, this mud's going onto these new pedals. Oh, look at that. Mongoose socks. Thanks for watching KevCentral. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and give this video a thumbs up. That helps the channel. Have a great day. Gross.